What's up everyone, MK Tom Brady here. In this video, I wanted to talk about some new tech that I've been working on with Subzero. And I spent a lot of time on this and I wanted to talk about it here in this video. So there are just some things that I consider gimmicky that are great for Combat League, but nothing else. And that's kind of when you release low hat, lazily, before or after the overhead, right? I don't really think that's very hard to block. Or when you jump over them and do like this and pray for an up block and then the low hat hits. Or sometimes they just stay crouch blocking for 10 years even after they block the low hat and this hits them. Maybe it's online, they couldn't react in time because of the internet. I don't know. Whatever the reason. I know these are good online tactics, but at the highest possible level to really catch people in top 16 and top 8 at the most stacked tournaments in the world, this is not something that's going to work against a well-versed opponent who trains, who labs against this stuff, etc. So I wanted to work on hard to blockables because I know people are going to say, Tom, get these things to hit within one frame of each other, hard to blockables. You got to level up. You got to put in that work. I'm glad you said that because I did. So I trained and practiced and labbed for hours and hours and hours for 5 days to get this perfect within one frame of each other on command every single time. First, I noticed people were getting out of it at a success rate that I felt was a bit too high. I thought there's no way people are getting out of it with this kind of level of success. So I tested it myself. So before we start, I want you to notice that Subzero, he's got, I'm on side 2 here. See the R2 button going off? There's unblockable protection in Mortal Kombat. Meaning even though there's a low and overhead coming out on the exact same frame, I can block them both, whether I'm standing or I'm crouching. And you'll notice that there were 3 hit windows that went off, 2 for the back 2, 1 for the low. All 3 are making contact. This is done so if 2 moves that have to be blocked 2 different directions hit on the exact same frame, to avoid it being a true unblockable, the game just allows you to block it one direction and block them both simultaneously. This avoids unblockables and avoids you getting hit by something and just looping it over and over and over again and you're dead. But if you, let's say, release them within one frame of each other, let's say the low hits 1 frame before the overhead. So here, for example, I can block them both. Notice I'm not hitting crouch, right? I'm just stand blocking. Look at my R2. You don't see down being done, right? So I can block these and either way, standing or crouching. Here, the low is hitting a little bit beforehand. So while in the first example, I could just stand block, here I cannot because the low is hitting first every single time. So the answer is simple. Level up, hit the lab, practice, work on these setups, get your timing perfectly, right? And succeed. It's a hard to blockable. However, if the low hits first, then the overhead comes out second, why am I able to block the overhead while I'm still in crouch block? Now this is proof the low is hitting first because it's hitting me, right? Exact same scenario. So why is, if the low is hitting first, why can I stay crouch blocking? So what if somebody is mistiming their block and they're just crouch blocking, right? And they mistime it. Well, they get out of it every time and kill you. So it's not a real hard to blockable. There's a secondary protection here, which is kind of weird. What if the overhead hits first? I'm glad you asked. So here's a combo that I was working on, a good scenario here, right? And if I'm crouching, the overhead hits first. This is how you know the overhead is hitting first. Now, if I'm standing, I can block everything and stand block. Once again, notice I'm not crouching. Look at my R2 button, right? You will not see any down direction here. So in this example, if I stand, the low is hitting first. In this example, if I stand, I block them all because the overhead is hitting first. So rather than having to do now normally what should happen here is they block the overhead. If they do not go to crouch block the hat, the second part of back 2 should hit them and they should be launched. However, they don't have to block it. And just in case anyone was wondering, is the hat bugged? It is not. The hat is actually making contact. You are seeing 3 clear blocks here. So the hat is actually being blocked. It's not one of those things where it disappears. But again, I can't block this in crouch because the overhead is actually hitting first. And then here's the same scenario in which the low hits first. So here, if I try to stay stand blocking, low hits first. If I block it in crouch, you block everything. So, just to dispel the naysayers here, they'll say, but Tom, it's a 50-50. So, okay, congratulations. You finally found the only scenario in which he has a real 50-50. Here's the problem. Because you can react to back 2 or back 3. But that is not a matter of reaction. It's just a raw guess. For a 50-50 to work, you shouldn't have to spend 5 days labbing, hours and hours a day to get a perfect setup, to get the perfect timing, to which not only can you have them hit within 1 frame of each other on command, you can alternate which one hits first 1 frame of each other on command. That kind of work should be heavily rewarded. Not, well, now you have a basic 50-50, in which you're dead if you're wrong. So that probably should not be the reward. Now, if somebody could truly get out of this hard to blockable scenario, they deserve to kill me. But it's not a hard to blockable. And this is what I'm talking about. So you can obviously release it, much slower. That again, that still wouldn't even work. You'd have to be like something like that or something like this. And that's just too easy to block. Requires no time to practice, nothing. You just do it, and it's just kind of generically how it is. So the Subzero doesn't have any real hard to blockable scenarios. This would be something that just would be filthy and dirty, and I think would be what Subzero needs. I understand every character has to deal with this when it comes to Kung Lao's low hat and that secondary kind of weird pseudo unblockable protection where still 1 will hit, but you can block. It's the other one in the same direction. This is why people are getting out of it. They're guessing wrong, but they're still guessing right because they don't have to worry about the other hit that's coming that we Subzero players would have to spend days and hours to perfect to get that timing down every single time on command. And I like that setup because it keeps them really high. It makes it hard to see the low hat. The other setup with the 3 back 2s does 28. That one does 27. So you lose 1% for, I think, a better setup. And it's just a little disappointing. I mean, where was this in MKX? Now we finally have more than a 50-50, I guess one of my favorite quotes, but we really don't. And I wish in MKX this was there because it surely would have saved us against Quan Chi. And I guess they implement it now just to make sure. I know it's not just to make sure Subzero, but it's just funny. They have all the safeguards that they put on Subzero himself as a character. And then the one true piece of dirt we find, there's a safeguard on that generically, which hurts Subzero more than anyone else. And yeah, it's just, like I said, for those that are going to say, but Tom, it's still a 50-50, I want you to understand, a true 50-50 should not take days and hours of practice to actually make it so. You should probably be rewarded a little more for that. And we are not. So this was the kind of dirt I was looking for, but unfortunately, unless you're like doing it like this timing here, when that's just not going to work on top level players. It's just not. May work in Combat League, but that's not the dirt you're looking for at the highest possible level. And for anyone that says, Tom, he doesn't put in the work, he doesn't lab, I assure you no Subzero player lab this and practice this for hours and hours and hours every day for 5 days. And for those that say he doesn't put in the work, he doesn't do the labbing, he doesn't whatever, you clearly do not know who you are talking to. Thanks for watching, everyone, and let me know what you guys think in the comments. Stay tuned for more content.